Oh, yeah. HooperCast. Hey, guys. So, this is episode 70 of the HooperCast, and this is just Dustin and I talking about some recent film news. We're focusing mainly on the Spider-Man Marvel news, a couple other items as well, but next week we'll have a couple of movie reviews and some other good stuff, too. So, stay tuned. Or else. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 70. Hi Dustin.
Hey Hooper.
Hey, we are communicating differently this time because who needs Skype, right?
We do.
Yeah, just us.
Just the two of us.
Yeah. I'm sorry to any listeners if we've ruined the illusion that Dustin and I are in the same room when we do this.
We're most assuredly not.
We're in the same spiritual room.
Indeed.
But not physical.
We're actually a state away from each other.
Oh, yeah. State of mind away.
State of mind.
Oh, man.
State of being.
Crazy.
So how you doing, Hooper?
Oh, well, I'm good. I got my TV installed today, so that's I can
legit.
Finally start catching up on some shows this weekend. So I'm pretty pretty stoked about that. That is, if does AMC.com and like ABC.com, do those? I mean, you can plug in Uverse and Comcast info. I mean, I assume DirecTV is part of that.
Yeah, I think that's one of them too. Yeah.
But see, DirecTV also, like, their DVR, they can only record a certain amount of shows at a time, though. That's the drawback. Mm-hmm. Like, Uverse was like, you can record every single channel on Earth at the same time if you want.
Right.
I was like, well, that's excessive, but I'm impressed. I never quite expected what has happened recently in film news to happen.
Yeah.
Which is what, Dustin?
Spider-Man is back with Marvel.
Woo! Now, let me try and recap what I think I know about this, because I haven't read anything. This is based on conversation I've overheard, and I think one article I read yesterday. But the way I understand it, Marvel and Sony, who owns the film rights to Spider-Man, reached an agreement that Sony would reboot Spider-Man for the third time, the second reboot, so third iteration of Spider-Man, and that he would appear in Marvel Captain America 3 Civil War.
Yes.
And I think one subsequent standalone film.
Yes.
Thus far.
Right.
And I think that's good because I like Marvel seems to be handling their characters better than other studios are handling their characters.
Sure, yeah.
Especially as we've seen with the recent Spider-Man movies. But I don't know. I don't know that I'm really that interested or excited to see Spider-Man at this point. He's been around so much and changed so many times. I'm sort of exhausted. What do you think?
I'm not exhausted of Spider-Man because he's one of my favorite characters, but I do think that I'm exhausted of the Andrew Garfield iteration. So for me, it was certainly welcome news that they're going to be doing something different. It's just I'm not sure that I really want him in the MCU. I mean, I do, but I would prefer if he had been there from the beginning. I mean, I'm not sure that it's official yet that he's going to be in Civil War. I assume he will because he plays such a pivotal role in that comic miniseries. So I'm not sure that he's going to appear there. I don't know that was a part of the announcement. Maybe that happened later. I can't remember, but I'm not sure if that's official. But I think it's a good bet because it's more likely that he'll show up in Civil War than, say, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I'm actually split on this though as a Spider-Man fan because I guess Spider-Man's got such a big universe in and of himself. What do you think about this, Hooper, that it's actually sort of shortchanging Spider-Man to have him with all of these other characters, whereas it could be argued that characters like the Hulk doesn't quite have the supporting cast that, say, Spider-Man does. So when the Hulk is in MCU, it doesn't hurt him as a character as much as it might Spidey, just in terms of giving screen time to a supporting cast. What do you think about that?
Here's how I would have preferred it from the get-go. I would have preferred it if Spider-Man had always been in the MCU.
Yeah.
And I essentially agree with what you're saying. He's got such his own autonomous cast of characters that I think they're going to crowbar him in here, and it's cool. It'd be cool to see him join them and be part of the universe. But yeah, it's almost like, all right, well, when are we going to tell his story by itself, though? And so what I'm hoping is that this deal is more of a formality. I'm hoping that Marvel's intention was really just like, let's just get Spider-Man back, and so we can make the movies better, because then we can rake in the money, and the fans will be happy because we'll be treating the character better with more respect. Mm-hmm. And if we want to shove him into these other films, we can. I hope he's not going to be a big part of a lot of these movies.
Yeah.
It's a little weird at this point that Spider-Man would show up in Civil War, like the third Captain America movie, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey guys, I've been around. I just avoided you guys because I don't."
Right. Yeah. That's what I keep thinking.
How do you explain his absence? How are they going to, especially in New York where the Avengers took place? Where was Spider-Man?
Yeah. Where were you? He was just like, "Yeah, I was just at Aunt May's." Yeah. Why? I don't know. It's so weird to think that he's been out there running around. So maybe he's not. Maybe they're going to go origin story and have him gain his powers after the Battle of New York or something like that.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of sort of justify that. But then I kind of don't like that because, I don't know, he just seems so crowbarred in there.
Here's why he shouldn't be in Civil War. And everyone's saying he's a big part of Civil War,
Yeah.
In Civil War, Peter Parker takes off his mask and reveals his secret identity to everybody as a way of saying...
Spoiler alert, Hooper.
Yeah, well, spoiler alert for this comic. He does...
It's been out for a while.
Yeah, he does it, and he does it because he's on Captain America's side for a while, but then he's seen too many people get killed, and so he talks to his family about it, and then he's like, I'm making this decision. I'm Peter Parker, and everyone's like, oh... That has zero impact when you see him for the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if his first appearance in the MCU is Captain America 3, so he's revealing his secret identity right off the bat, it carries no weight. Mm-hmm. It carries weight in that that he's never done it before in the history of comics or screen time. But in terms of with that actor, you've not seen him carry the burdens or sacrifices that Spider-Man has carried.
It's true.
So him coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm just a kid who's a photographer." And there's no impact,
to it.
And then you're going to put him in a standalone movie where everyone knows who he is. They shouldn't put it. The story. Honestly, I understand that's an important plot point in Civil War, but if you're going to adapt it to the screen, you could have easily cut that out.
Sure. Well, and also, and I think that was their plan from the get-go. But also keep in mind in the comics, they never really had any intention of Peter being Spider-Man. Without the secret identity. So after Civil War, it wasn't very long before he made the deal with Mephisto to sort of retcon everything that had happened. So Marvel didn't really have any stories to tell with, where everybody knows that Peter is Spidey and vice versa. So to me, it's going to be weird if they do that. Obviously, in the first standalone Spider-Man movie, they're not going to have him make a deal with the devil to retcon what happened in Captain America. So they're going to have to tell the story where he has no secret identity, where everybody knows that Peter is Spidey. And I think that's weird because not even Marvel Comics wanted to do that. So it would be weird for the cinematic universe to do that.
And even if you start him, even if you have him gain his origin within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the best part about Spidey being teamed up with all these people was the fact that he'd been doing it for a while. Right. Like, and that's why I sort of felt like these characters all have their own histories, but now they're working together instead of everyone's new to the table and we're all sort of feeling out how we should do things. It's like, yeah, I've been Spider-Man for, a few years and I've seen some stuff. I'm pretty young and you guys have seen some stuff, but, I'm very self-assured as Spider-Man. And so to have him be coming into his own while, as a part of a group as opposed to on his own, which is the whole journey of Peter Parker, is his isolation.
Right.
It's not making him a douchebag like they did with Andrew Garfield, but it is changing the story dynamics that make Peter Parker who he is and how he grows.
Sure. No, I agree with that. And I think just by throwing him in, I think what Marvel's almost doing, it seems, is like they're banking on the fact that everybody knows Spider-Man, and so you'll come into the movie and assume a lot of the things. That way they won't have to redo the origin story. But I think that's such a lazy way of doing things, because if we're going to reboot, if we're going to recast and brand basically, then like you were saying, it's not going to have any impact. I mean, just because it's Spider-Man doesn't mean anything to the average Joe. I mean, I think about my grandfather, right? My grandfather likes the Spider-Man movies a lot, but he's never read a comic book in his life. So will he go see Spider-Man when it comes out under the MCU? Yes. But he's not going to bring with him all of that stuff because he didn't even see the Andrew Garfield movies. So, I just don't understand how, for somebody who does not know the comics and whose only entrance to Spider-Man has been the films, how they're going to bring that emotional baggage to Spider-Man this time around, I just don't think is going to make any sense. I'm doing a really bad job of explaining that, but I just think that the average Joe isn't going to relate to this character just because he's Spider-Man like they think he will. I think the average Joe wants to spend time and grow with that character. Yeah.
That's sort of been their battle ever since they discontinued Raimi, is getting you to side with Peter and want to be a part of his whole journey.
Sure.
I mean...
But, part of me too, let me ask you about this. I don't know that... Have they said that Andrew Garfield is done?
I believe so. I don't know if anyone has... I feel like that's the... I almost feel like it's been pseudo-decided, but maybe it hasn't been decided by the actual studios.
Yeah, see, I don't know, because I do know they're still going ahead with the Spider-Man spin-offs. Sinister Six, all of that stuff is still happening. So how can that happen if they reboot? So that makes me think almost that either Sony is just super delusional and they think they can continue making Sinister Six without the Spider-Man that it spun off of, or they just aren't going to change just yet. Andrew Garfield, I've always said I like him. I think he was a victim of bad writing.
Yeah.
But let me ask you about this rumor. I heard this rumor that they're actually they're exploring the possibility of using Miles Morales as Spider-Man, and as in the comics, if Andrew Garfield starts out as Spider-Man in the MCU only to kill him, that would leave that continuity open, and then also allow them to sort of reboot and redo Spider-Man in the MCU as Miles Morales. What do you think about that? I mean, would you be open to seeing Miles Morales?
I'd be open to it in terms of strictly movies. Let's forget the comics and the character history. I'd be open to it simply because everything they've done recently has not worked.
Sure.
But I think it hasn't worked because of Sony, not because of the story being,
Peter. Right.
Too tired. So I would have no problem with them continuing with Andrew Garfield and pretty much excising everything else. Take Andrew Garfield with you because he's the face people recognize now. He's not. He's actually very well cast as Peter Parker.
Sure.
but get rid of Mark Webb, get rid of Kurtzman, Orsi, and whoever else is writing those movies. Get rid of those. Get rid of basically the creative team behind the recent Spider-Man movies. Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to have any sort of carryover, I only want Andrew Garfield. You know,
sure.
I don't even want Sally Field. I just want him.
I agree.
And I don't want the parents' story. I don't want any of that continuity. Essentially, just take him because he's recognizable, and retcon everything else.
Sure.
Throw him into Captain America and into the next solo movie with only a couple of things left over. With only the stories. Throw him in there with only the events that have happened that are in the comics. Like, forget about the parents. You can carry with him the Gwen Stacy death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but forget the parent story and drop the attitude. You know, have a new team of people who understand him, write him, because you have an actor who understood him, but was given a different direction. What's he going to do? Quit?
Right.
You know, like it. So I'm. If they recast him, I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Sure.
But if they want to keep Andrew Garfield, that's fine. I don't want the leadership from the Amazing Spider-Man movies involved in this. I want Kevin Feige, and I want Marvel's people. That's all.
I agree, and I don't think they'll I don't think they'll go Miles Morales. I think they kind of know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man to the vast majority of people, and in order for this to work, you know, really give the fans what it is that they've wanted, whether they've known they wanted it or not, is Peter Parker standing next to Tony Stark. You know, two scientists. One still in high school and the other professional. Give us that, and I think that people will really, really latch onto that, whether they kind of think they want it or not. I think they will latch onto it because it's such a good sort of pairing to have these characters together. Again, you know, I wish this had happened from the beginning.
Yeah,
I wish that they had sort of worked all of this in so we could at least have a Spider-Man movie leading up to his appearance in another character's film. That way we kind of get to know him. We get to see where his head's at. Yeah. You know, we get to know his supporting cast and know where his head's at. We get to understand the continuity when he comes into Captain America. We'll understand exactly what he's just come off of. You know, if it's just beating the Green Goblin for the first time, or you know, Gwen Stacy's death, or whatever it is, we will know exactly what he just comes from. Whereas if they just throw him into Captain America now with no origin, nothing like that, we're like, okay, at what point is he? We can't quite know, and unless they specifically bring up, like, my girlfriend died, then we won't know if it's before Gwen's death or after.
Right.
Which, you know, Peter is a very different character before and after. And so I think that's important to know where he's at in his journey. And I wish there was just a movie prior to whatever it is they're going to throw him into, if it's Civil War or whatever. Just let us get to know him and his cast and his mindset. And I think a cool thing about having Peter still be in high school while the Avengers is out there saving the world.
Yeah.
I think that's such a cool thing to have him almost like starstruck when he meets the Avengers for the first time. Yeah. You know, wouldn't that would just be such a cool moment? Like, he wants to be an Avenger. You know, and whether at the end of Captain America 3 or whatever, he's like, yeah, I don't think I want that anymore. You guys are jerks or whatever, is a different story. But I just wish we had more time to get to know him. And I can't imagine a circumstance where they can write Civil War with enough Act 1 for us to really get to know Peter before the conflict happens.
Not without muddling the story of that movie.
Right.
And I'd rather them not risk that.
Right. I agree. And that was the beautiful thing about Winter Soldier, is it was so much Steve's story. And there were other characters for sure, but Steve, the spotlight was on him the whole time. And that to me is sort of what made it work so much. So Civil War has me worried anyway, just because it seems like he's going to have to split the time between him and Robert Downey Jr., and then to throw in a Spider-Man who the audience is going to want to see, and this is his first introduction, you're just going to steal the spotlight from Captain America in his own movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, at the end of the day, I'd much rather have Kevin Feige overseeing Spidey than Avi Arad, and if this is what it takes to do that, then I'm all for it. And they have a much better chance of getting this right than Sony ever did. So I'm for it as long as they cast the right guy.
Yeah.
It's interesting for sure, and I am looking forward to it.
Let me ask you this, Dustin. Me and John talked about this. Do you think they're going to kill Steve Rogers in Captain America 3?
I think it's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
If not in Captain America 3, I would expect it in the following Avengers.
Yeah.
I think Avengers 3 is going to be split into 2 parts, correct?
Yes.
I would expect that, if not in Civil War, I would almost expect it at the end of the first
part 1
Avengers film. That way, that's sort of your cliffhanger. That's your Katniss being pulled up from the Hunger Games in Catching Fire, that's sort of the thread that you're going to follow in the next film is, instead of Katniss being rescued, you have Steve Rogers dead on the courthouse steps.
Yeah.
And then you can go a number of ways. You can have Bucky take over, or you can have Falcon take over, which may be what they do, considering that's what they're doing in the comics.
Yeah, well, John also pointed out that Sebastian Stan has signed on for like 6 or 9 movies or something.
Yeah, he has.
So that's one of those things where it's like,
But to be fair, the little kid from Iron Man 3 signed on for like 5 movies. So
God, I don't like that kid.
I know. So what they plan on doing with him, I don't know. I think sometimes they do that stuff just to kind of cover their butts. So it may not be indicative of anything.
Man,
I don't know how many movies Anthony Mackie is signed on for.
Yeah,
but I would imagine they've probably signed him for a few now, because they officially announced he is a part of Avengers: Age of Ultron. So I would imagine that if they didn't sign him for multiple films from the get go, then at least by now they've locked him in.
Yeah, I think they'll kill him. I mean, and it's sort of, he and I got into a bigger discussion about what they would do with, at what point would they replace the other characters. I mean, you got a new Captain America, and, eventually you got to replace the Hulk. I mean, unless Mark Ruffalo wants to keep coming back and keep hulking out, they're going to get rid of Thor at some point, and they'll have someone else or no one else replace him, and especially if you get Spider-Man in there, then that's a compelling character. So you get the Winter Soldier, you got Spider-Man. Tony Stark's gonna drop out at some point,
right?
And then we left with who? The Inhumans or Black Panther or these other Phase 3 people,
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Yeah,
I really think what they're kind of going towards, and I don't know when it'll happen, if it'll be after Infinity War or if it'll be, like I said, sort of the part 2 of Infinity War. But I feel like sort of what they are leading towards is that these older guys, the guys that we've been following the whole time, will give it up and come back for like cameo roles at various points. But they will pass the torch on probably sometime during Infinity War or at the end of the last one. And then going forward, we may see Thor every now and then. We may see Iron Man every now and then. But I think they'll probably go with some of the younger characters. Like you mentioned, Black Panther and the Inhumans stand out. They'll probably graduate some people from the minor leagues, a.k.a. television, and bring Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters up. Like, I think Adrienne Palicki is on S.H.I.E.L.D. these days. And they'll probably graduate her up, and maybe the girl that plays Sky.
Because she's
they just gave her superpowers.
Yeah, she got superpowers now. She's Quake.
Yeah.
Who's one of the Inhumans, I think.
Right. So what they'll do is I would imagine what they'll do is start pulling Inhumans and TV characters up to be the next wave of Avengers.
I mean, Daredevil too.
Yeah, Daredevil, all the Netflix characters, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, all of that stuff, and they'll bring those characters in for the next wave, and it's possible at that point that the Guardians of the Galaxy will become more of an Avengers staple, but I feel like up until Steve and Tony go, I think Guardians will kind of keep its distance, and as long as James Gunn is involved, I think he really wants to keep his distance.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure how to feel about that, but yeah, I think that's definitely what they're leading towards, because they know Chris Evans, all the Chris's that they have are just going to end up being like, I'm done.
Yeah, so. Well, it's really hard. I mean, the two of them have the most physical work in terms of keeping in shape for their roles, and after a while, they're like, Chris Evans could jump now and he'd be fine. His career has been everyone's career is better because of these movies.
Exactly.
So like they all can jump whenever. And
right.
I know Robert Downey Jr. will stay as long as they can do something. Like I don't think he really wanted to do any more aside from the Avengers movies. And then they said, well, what about if we did Civil War and Cap 3, because that's a different direction for Tony. And he said, that's interesting, and that's why he signed. Because he wasn't going to do another Iron Man movie, because he was like, well, what else is there to tell as an individual story for Tony Stark? They
Right.
said, well, what if he feels responsible? And I think what I mentioned too, is I think the events of Cap 3 will lead to Steve's death, and I think Tony will carry the guilt into the other Avengers movies.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing to do with him. But then I think Tony will die in the part 2 of the Infinity War. Right. I think he'll die then. If Cap's not already dead, he'll be dead. And Thor might just go back to Asgard forever, and they'll seal it off, and they'll be like, all right, no more Earth stories for him. Yeah. And then I think Bruce Banner will go back into hiding, and then and the new ones will take over, because at a certain point you need to wrap up their stories. It's kind of like juggling plates. You keep juggling plates, eventually put one down, or you're going to drop it and it's going to break. And then it doesn't matter how well you juggled the plates for how many years, you still broke it.
Right.
So they need to conclude some of this after these Avengers films.
I think you're absolutely right.
Because then if you're me, for me it's just like, look, and then if these new people suck, I don't have to worry about them being tied to the characters I like.
Yeah.
I can always have the movies that my favorite actors were in, and I'll always have that. And I can, at least if the stories are concluded, then they won't taint these characters by continually bringing them back into dumb movies.
Exactly. Exactly. You mentioned the Hulk going back into hiding. I always figured that they'll probably end his story with him in space.
I mean, why not? Because they're going to do the whole planet. They could do the Planet Hulk thing.
They could do Planet Hulk and then end him and just be like, okay, he just stays on another planet somewhere. But yeah, no, they've got to end the stories at some point, and and I think they know that. I think they're conscious of that. If they don't, they're testing fate as it is. I mean, what if Chris Evans got in a car wreck and died? You know what I mean?
Right.
They've got to kind of be like, okay, we've gambled enough.
Yeah,
we're out. So, and then gamble some other characters. I think maybe that was the purpose of Guardians of the Galaxy, was just to see, can we do it with somebody other than big names? And so I don't know. Yeah.
And it seems like too many characters right now, but I think it's because they're trying to make the transition smoother.
Right.
And I'm okay with it for that reason. I don't think they're trying to add more and not subtract any.
Sure.
So
I'll tell you the one thing that I'm worried about, and you can probably tell me I'm paranoid, is I'm worried about Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. It's too early to tell. We haven't really seen much of them, but I'm really worried that they're not going to fit in with the Avengers, and I'm worried that I guess what I'm worried about is that they're wasting our time. Is that they're not going to be as popular of characters, and then they'll just be kind of cast aside or sent away. And I don't know. It's too early to tell, but that's the only reservation I've got with the MCU right now.
Yeah.
Other than Spider-Man.
Or they'll fit in too easily, and it's like, you didn't earn this.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
We don't really know you that well. I'm more worried that they'll fit in too easily.
Yeah, no, that's true too.
I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see with them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have hardly any speculation. I just have okay, well, do this right, or
right.
Make them bad. I don't know. Just do something else.
Sure. Yeah.
What was your other news story, Dustin?
The next news story that I want to talk about is Neill Blomkamp has, I guess, officially announced now that he's doing the next Alien film.
Yes.
In January, he started releasing via Instagram a few, some concept art from a script and some story ideas that he had. And it went viral. A lot of news outlets kind of picked it up and said, is he working on it? He eventually said he was not working on it. He had hoped to, but it just wasn't going to work out. And then a few weeks later, he was like, oh, wait, yeah, I am working on it. And so I think kind of what happened was I feel like almost what he did was just test the waters and be like, before I go pitch this to Fox, let me see how many people are interested. And the fact that it spread like wildfire, I think probably allowed him to go in and say, look, I'm interested, Sigourney Weaver's interested, and we've got the internet interested already. So what do you say? And Fox was like, all right.
Or Fox said, we'll hire you, but let's all test the waters.
Test it. Yeah, that's true,
and
too.
It was their idea. However, I can see it going either way. I can see them doing that, but I can also see him being smart enough to get public opinion on his side before the pitch.
Yeah, no, that's true. It could have been either way, but nevertheless, he's finishing up a film called Chappie, and I think Sigourney Weaver is in that film, and I saw an interview with her where she was saying that pretty much from day one on set, he was sort of pitching ideas to her for another Alien film, and
real professional.
Yeah, real professional, Neill.
Yeah.
Never trust a guy named Neill.
So what's the context of this scene? Hey, before we get to what we're doing today, can you look at these sketches I made of the xenomorph and tell me...
What if Ripley lost a leg?
What if Ripley marries the xenomorph? Do you think she could ever love it after all it's done to her? Do you think she'd take it back?
Oh no.
We're on set right now. I'm sorry.
I know. Right. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. It's so unprofessional.
I'm just saying. I think they would have a beautiful relationship. Okay. Action. But yeah. So if you have a moment, listeners, check out his Instagram. There's a lot of photos up there of concept art, and I think what. During the press junkets for Chappie, he's been talking about it a little bit, and it sounds like what he's going to do is make a sequel to Aliens, which means he's going to be sort of pretending Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection never happened. And so this will sort of be a direct sequel to Aliens, again starring Sigourney Weaver and Michael Biehn as Hicks. So... yeah, I think this is really interesting for a couple of reasons. One, the aliens are such an awesome character and awesome design and super scary. I don't know why they haven't been making an alien movie every 3 to 5 years since the first one. But they
make it scary again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these guys, just their design alone freaks me out. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't take much. I'm super psyched because I've never seen Alien 3 or 4. It's like The Godfather 3. I love the first two so much, I refuse to see the sequels that are supposedly inferior.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen Aliens 3 or 4. I can't really talk about them. I know at some point Ripley dies and comes back with alien DNA and she can shoot acid or something. So I think it's a good move for them to ignore that they happened. And just be like, okay, sequel to Aliens. And I think this is a really good opportunity. If Alien is sort of Act 1 and Aliens is Act 2, this is a good way to sort of end Ripley's trilogy of films and end her story. And I think what would be fun about this is once Ripley's done, then they can move anywhere in the universe. And like Predator's not tied to Schwarzenegger, this franchise shouldn't necessarily be attached at the hip to Sigourney Weaver, and so if this film is a step in that direction of we can just tell a new story, then I'm all for it, because I would love to see the aliens make their way to Earth. I'd love to see what Earth looks like in the future.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Alien vs. Predator, which I also haven't seen either of those films. And as I understand, they take place in modern day Earth somehow, which doesn't make much sense, but okay. So anyway, but I'd love to see future Earth with like Wayland Corp, all big and powerful and whatnot, or Wayland Yutani Corp, I guess it is in those films, and show me future Earth, all Blade Runnery, and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, there's some aliens on Earth, and I'd be like, oh snap. So do something like that, and if this is a step in that direction of finally branching out to, okay, we're riding in space, and then we crash land, or there's an alien on the ship, or whatever it is, then I'm all for it. So I think Neill Blomkamp is certainly the guy to do it. He is a fan, which is always a good sign, and those films, he says, really inspired him to do what he does. So I feel like you're going to get something kind of special out of him just because of that. Even if the story's not good, I mean, it'll look good, and it'll be, I think, pretty connected visually to the universe that has been established. And anyway, long story short, I think that he's the right guy. District 9 is great. Elysium I never saw, and Chappie I don't have any interest in, but I think this would be a good step for him. So I'm excited about it.
It's kind of like with J.J. Abrams, having said a lot of his inspiration came from Star Wars and movies like that. Well, that's the guy you want to direct the new Star Wars.
Exactly.
Like you I mean, there are some people who are like, oh, I'm a fan of blah blah blah, and then it's like, well, why don't you direct the reboot of it? And that sucks. But you want talented people who've shown range in their careers, but also competence and even at times restraint. Well, he's not gonna prequel up these Star Wars movies by throwing in a ton of CG characters. He's gonna keep it pretty grounded,
faithful.
So I think Neill Blomkamp's got a good track record. He doesn't have a large body of work, but he's got a very consistent body of work, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be good. Like I said, you need to make it scary again. You need to remind people why these xenomorphs are they're not just going to go down very easily. They're going to be very difficult to get rid of and very imposing. I mean, even one on a ship of 30 people should be scary.
Yeah, I agree.
So that when it's finally one against one, then it's horrible. And I think you're right, just to tie up Sigourney Weaver's story. Kind of like with the new Star Wars, like sorry to keep bringing that up, but I mean, like, I don't think that the Han, Luke, and Leia should be in more of them than this first one.
Yeah.
I don't know if they are going to be, but in my opinion, it's like I don't want to see another trilogy with these old characters. They can be there with this one to establish the continuity, but they shouldn't stick around.
Sure. No, I agree.
No.
Well, let me ask you about two more things, and then we'll wrap it up. I think these will be pretty quick.
Okay.
First, a few weeks ago, I guess probably about a week ago, Zack Snyder released an image of Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Did you take a look at that, Hooper?
I think I saw it. I'm looking at it now. He's all silver and stuff.
Desaturated or something.
Yeah, it's desaturated. What do you think of this image?
Well, I'm actually a fan of it. I think it makes Aquaman seem savage.
Yeah,
which I think is actually kind of a cool way to go. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about Aquaman as king of Atlantis, and so he looks sort of regal, and he has but I like this savage looking one. He seems definitely intense,
like a badass, and not like a.
Well, this is true.
Like a waif, he doesn't seem like a waif model,
Right. I mean, no, but think about like the typical Aquaman in his bright orange, scaly shirt, bright orange mithril.
Yeah,
that's basically what he is, and And anyway, this though, I mean, he has those scaly looking things both in what looks like armor and maybe also in tattoo.
Yeah.
And which again sort of looks tribal and whatnot. He's got these legit gauntlets. He's got the big trident, and even the Aquaman A symbol on his belt, like normal. So there is some sort of emblemage there. No, I enjoy the image. He looks savage and crusty and salty and all the sea crusty and salty. and then of course there's Unite the Seven, which could, I guess, either refer to the Justice Leaguers. So does this say that Aquaman is the reason the Seven come together, or is it talking about the Seven Seas and being all nautical on me?
I think it's the Seven Dwarves, actually.
Unite the Seven Dwarves.
Yeah, we gotta go. Yeah. Come on, it's we gotta go around. Where's Grumpy? Where's Sleepy? Where's Drunky and Blitzen and all the other
Batman ones? Is Grumpy. I can't name a single other dwarf other than Sleepy.
I think Unite the Seven has to do with the Justice League.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the Seven Seas.
Sure.
Only pirates talk about the Seven Seas.
Yar. I'd be Aquaman. I'm interested regardless, but I think it's a cool way to go. If they had gone with the bright orange, it would have been like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I want to pick your brain about is, and I'm sure this will take even less time, is the film coming up called Creed. Have you read anything about this?
I don't know anything about this.
Okay, so Creed is a film that should start. It may be shooting now, actually. It opens later this year. Stars Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, the grandson, I guess, of Apollo Creed. And he goes to Philadelphia to train with Rocky. And so for a match. So according to the synopsis, Rocky is dealing with something. It says Rocky trains the young fighter even though he's battling an opponent more deadly than any he faced in the ring, which I don't know, could mean his health or something. I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
But I'm excited for this because I love the Rocky movies, particularly the first four. I think they're all really, really phenomenal. Yeah. The last 5 is not very good, and Balboa is okay. But the first 4 are really great, and all for different reasons, really.
5 is terrible.
5's awful. I cannot sit through 5.
Yeah, I bought like the Blu-ray set for the other 4.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, because everyone has its own little thing. Like, I mean, I guess 3 and 4 are pretty similar. 3 has Rocky and Apollo training on the beach, which seems to be the scene everybody makes fun of most. And 4 has him training in the Alps, or in Russia. And so anyway, they're all cool for different reasons. But this to me is a cool way to kind of pass the torch and continue the Rocky story without it being a Rocky film. And it's going to be sad as all get out, though, if Rocky dies at the end of this. I'm going to be legit sad if Rocky dies. But I think this is a really cool thing. I love Michael B. Jordan, and I want this to be good. And the only reason I bring it up is because they released the synopsis for it yesterday. So,
gotcha.
I'm excited for it, and I think it's a cool way to kind of breathe life into a franchise that should, by all means, be dead.
Much like Rocky himself soon.
Much like Rocky himself.
Yeah, I think that's the only real story you can tell of Rocky right now is passing on, the wisdom and everything. Sure. I was fine with Balboa being the last, but
yeah, I was fine with 4 being the last, and then I was okay with Balboa being the last too. So we'll see.
You just gotta you really do have to keep the focus on Creed, though. Like, you gotta,
sure,
it's gotta be his story, and you have to tell You have to tell Rocky's part of it, like he's not even like a legacy character.
Yeah.
That was a healthy heaping of film news, Dustin.
That was.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned for other stuff coming up. Dustin, in future episodes, Dustin, I believe you and I talk about the SpongeBob movie and a couple other films. And there will also be an episode where Jack and I break down Olympus Has Fallen versus White House Down, just as action movies in general, but also in comparison to each other since the plots are so similar. But we might be doing more of those for those who like action movies. And other film
which
news.
Is everybody.
Which is everybody. But there's a way to do it, and there's tropes. The whole purpose, I guess I'll go ahead and tease ahead what he and I are doing. The whole purpose of those episodes is really to say, you know, there are certain things in action films that are timeless, that you know, there's a way to do them, and then there's some stuff that's outdated that shouldn't be done, you know, anymore. Lines that are spoken that really need to stop, you know, certain tropes that need to die out, but certain classic elements that will always work, you know, buddy cop movies and this, and you know, like you know, damsel in distress kind of thing, you know. So what works, what doesn't,
sure,
you know. So anyway, well, until next time, everybody.
See y'all.
Goodbye.
I'm Smaug the dragon.
Oh, Smaug the stupendous.
You didn't sound like Bilbo there. You sounded like Smaug's wife.
I'm Smaug the stupendous.
Oh, Smaug the stupendous.
Say it again.
Whoa, we must.
I said Smaug the stupendous.
Say it louder. That's right.
What are we surrounded by? Your treasure. All your gold.
That's right, I'm rich. I'm so rich.